Okay. Hello, everyone. As we did last year, I found it helpful to run through the presentation on camera as part of a stream. So, what? Okay. So, this is the stream that I'm going to be presenting around 4. I've been working on it for quite a while. We're both going on 3 hours sleep tonight, but I hope you enjoy it. Hello, everyone. You are sitting in the top 10 Buffy or Angel episodes that inspire us to be strong. My name is Ian Martin. I'm a video producer for LinkedIn, an occasional writer, and in my free time, I run a little video channel called The Passion of the Nerd. It began August 2014, and for 3 years I've been creating an episode-by-episode guide focusing on characters, themes, and philosophy in the Buffyverse. If you have watched the channel, fair warning, these live talks tend to be the culmination of the past couple of years' worth of work. If you're a subscriber, hopefully the broad top-down perspective this talk will shed. Hopefully through the broad top-down perspective, this will shed some new light on content that we've already covered. And if you're new and enjoy yourself, maybe check us out at youtube.com/passionofthenerd. Now, Joss Whedon created in Buffy a densely layered series that all filters down from the primary metaphor in the show, that being the Slayer role is the symbol for adulthood and becoming an adult. And that metaphor informed a unique theme for each season, structured by Buffy's age and status in life. Angel the series began airing in tandem with Buffy, starting in Buffy's 4th season, and while Angel didn't quite have the same kind of deliberate structure as Buffy did, its characters were no less burdened by questions of morality and meaning. If Buffy is a show about growing up, then Angel is a show about being an adult, and the questions you have to face. Questions like, can we ever truly be redeemed for the actions in our past that had permanent consequences? Are we fated to pass our mistakes on to our children? Is it sometimes necessary to do a little evil in order to do good? Both shows inspire passionate fandoms, less the type who debate the precise material and weight of Buffy's scythe, though there are a few of us, but more the variety of fan who can't believe that Dawn did that to Buffy in empty places, or those who feel a quiver of grief after only just a couple of notes on a piano. The shows inspire us through the use of both the fantastic and the mundane, because the metaphor always gives us those two perspectives. There is as much strength in fighting demons as there is going to a mind-numbing dead-end job in order to take care of the people you love in your life. And I think when people look closely at the Buffyverse, they tend to find something they weren't quite expecting. Their own reflection. But before we begin the list, I want to define what I mean by inspire us to be strong, which first involves giving you a quick overview of the Buffyverse philosophy. The episode that first establishes the Buffyverse's philosophical perspective loudly and strongly is the Whedon written and directed episode, Lie to Me. In Lie to Me, Buffy runs into her old friend, Ford. Ford worms his way into her graces while simultaneously striking a deal with Spike to turn Buffy over to him. He traps Buffy in a basement with a group of people and reveals he's dying of cancer and has asked Spike to make him immortal. While Buffy tries to find a way out, she and Ford have one of the most philosophically significant conversations in the series.
Okay, will you try vomiting for 24 hours straight because the pain in your head is so intense, and then we'll discuss the concept of right and wrong. These people are sheep. They want to be vampires because they're lonely, miserable, or bored. I don't have a choice.
You have a choice. You don't have a good choice, but you have a choice. You're opting for mass murder here, and nothing you say is going to make that okay.
By the way, pausing the presentation for just a moment, I don't know if the audio is set up to send the clips to you guys automatically, or if the mic is doing it, or if it's creating an echo. If you're getting an echo, please put it in chat, and Jess will let me know. Also, I did see one question before we got started asking whether or not this was going to be filmed, and it will. The live stream is not the only opportunity. Back to it. Now, Joss Whedon has said he is an atheist and an absurdist, and in the DVD commentary for Firefly, he stated that Nausea, by Jean-Paul Sartre, was the most important book he'd ever read. And Sartre was a key figure in the evolution of existentialism. At its most basic, existentialism has two concepts. The first is that the universe is indifferent to you. There's no intrinsic meaning or purpose to life, no finish line, no goal. Excuse me. Can you grab me my water?
Where is it?
Never mind.
Oh.
Sorry, everyone. Thank you. No ultimate goal. And the second principle is that it's if meaning is not intrinsic, we are free to create meaning through our choices. But not only that, we are required to choose, because if we don't, there is no meaning. The power to live a meaningful life rests inside each of us. So back to Buffy and Ford. Absolutely, the universe is indifferent to Ford. And Ford has said he doesn't have a choice. Now, Sartre called this acting in bad faith. And no, I don't think faith's name is an accident. To quote, individuals can never escape or have taken from them their freedom to choose. If you believe that one choice you have takes undeniable precedent over another, then you have made yourself an object in the universe at the mercy of its circumstances. To put it another way,
I don't have a choice.
You have a choice. You don't have a good choice, but you have a choice.
So that's the philosophical blueprint of the show. But what do I mean by strength? The dictionary defines strength as the emotional or mental qualities necessary to deal with situations or events that are distressing or difficult. Distressing or difficult. That's in part why some of the entries in this list may seem a little counterintuitive at first. Tragic rather than inspirational. But in researching this talk, I found two quotes that stuck with me. The first is by Arthur Helps, and he says, strength is born in the deep silence of long-suffering hearts, not amid joy. Strength is a tool, as with compassion or empathy. But it is one we forge ourselves. And while Joyce's fingertips certainly shaped Buffy and who she was, the thing that really carved away the clay and set the details were her experiences that included grief and suffering. But suffering alone does not manifest our strength. What we choose to do with it does. Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor, wrote in his book Man's Search for Meaning, "The one thing you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond to what you do to me. The last of one's freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance." To put it all together, then, I would say that strength is the ability to make ethical choices in the face of overwhelming circumstances. And as with Ford, there really is no more overwhelming circumstance than death. The challenge in Buffy's first season is for her to commit to becoming the Slayer, and by analogy, commit to growing up, and all that that entails. Throughout this season, she's confronted by various analogs for this stage in her development, but she never really commits to it until we get to Prophecy Girl. In Prophecy Girl, Giles has discovered through a codex brought to him by Angel that Buffy will be led into hell by the Anointed One to face the Master. As he struggles to figure out what to do, Buffy overhears.
One Slayer dies, next one's called. Wonder who she is. Will you train her? Or will they send someone else?
Buffy,
To say how he's gonna kill me? Do you think it'll hurt?
As ever, this moment is about two things. The fantasy confrontation that Buffy is about to have with the Master, and the notion that part of becoming an adult involves accepting that we all inevitably will die. Buffy tries to run off, but when she goes to comfort Willow, after Willow witnesses a vampire massacre, she has a realization.
I thought I could take anything. But Buffy, this was different.
It'll be all right.
I'm trying to think how to say it. to explain it so you understand.
It doesn't matter as long as you're okay.
I'm not okay. I knew those guys. I go to that room every day. And when I walked in there, it wasn't our world anymore. They made it theirs. And they had fun.
At the massacre, Willow witnessed a cartoon is playing with a bloody handprint stuck to the screen. The world Buffy wishes to cling to, the world of her childhood, will inevitably be swallowed up and destroyed anyway. And so Buffy makes the choice to face her own death, to commit to adulthood in order to save the world that she wanted to hide away in. She is led into hell by the Anointed One, a turned vampire child. Anointed One is another way of saying Chosen One, which Buffy is, and the Anointed One is a symbol for what might have happened had Buffy not chosen her destiny. Perpetual, perverted childhood. The Master is the season symbol for what we fear adulthood to be: old age, death, decay. She is facing her fear, elevating it out from her subconscious, and after Xander and Angel revive her, that fear can no longer control her. In metaphor, then, her death in the Master's lair is really the death of her childhood. She is fully committed. I feel strong, she says. And as she walks away, and as she walks to the final, almost anticlimactic battle with Fruit Punch Mouth, the show's theme plays inside of the episode, because she has committed to her destiny, to being the Slayer, to being the embodiment of what the show's kick-ass music was always intended to suggest.
So how do you know where the Master's going?
When it comes to Angel, it's interesting to note that the three most significant episodes in establishing the theme for his show are not actually Angel episodes, but a Buffy trilogy. Excuse me. The Wish, Amends, and Gingerbread. I mentioned that Whedon considered himself an absurdist rather than strictly an existentialist. Absurdism shares a common template with existentialism in the belief that there is no intrinsic meaning to life or the universe around us, but also that it is a part of the human condition to constantly seek meaning regardless. And what can spring from awareness of this spiritual dissonance is a profound melancholy or despair. In Season 3, Angel is pulled from a hell dimension somewhat inexplicably, and in Amends, he's confronted by the weight of the evil he committed when he was soulless, visited by nightmares of previous kills and the ghosts of them in the form of the first evil. Overwhelmed with guilt, he goes to Giles, who happens to be wearing in the scene the same shirt he was when Angel kidnapped and tortured him, and asks Giles a very important question.
I need to know. I need to know why I'm here.
Here? Back on Earth?
I should be in a demon dimension suffering an eternity of torture.
I don't feel particularly inclined to argue with that.
But I'm not. I was freed, and I don't understand why.
Knowing why you were back would give you peace of mind?
It might.
Notice the phrasing of the question he asks Giles. Not how am I here, but why am I here? Why am I alive? What possible good can he do that will mean anything to so much sadness and loss that he created? Angel craves meaning, but sees nothing but a meaningless universe. This is what Albert Camus, the man most principally responsible for absurdism, called the absurd. And Camus' essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, begins, "There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Judging whether life is or is not worth living amounts to answering the fundamental question of philosophy." Now, Camus postulated three possible choices to the problem of absurdity and the ensuing despair. The first was faith, a belief in the unseen. In The Wish, the first part of this three-part trilogy, Giles saves the world from a dystopian fate by destroying Anya's power center. He has no memory of the world should be like, no proof that his actions will be vindicated. "How do you know," says Anya, "that the other world is any better than this?" "Because it has to be," says Giles. But Camus was an atheist, and even so, it's doubtful that Angel could get into a Buffyverse heaven, what with the demon in him.
Am I a thing worth saving, huh? Am I a righteous man?
Camus' second choice was suicide, and by example he used the myth of Sisyphus. Now, Sisyphus was a man condemned by the gods to push a rock up a hill, and just before reaching the top, the rock would roll back down to the bottom, and Sisyphus would go and get it. Forever. Now, why, Camus wondered, did Sisyphus just not have a seat at the top of the hill? Why keep going to get the rock? Isn't it a meaningless pursuit if the rock is never able to arrive at its destination? And here, at the top of the hill in Sunnydale, Angel's rock has rolled back down to the bottom, and he has the choice of whether or not to go and get it, or to stand at the top and watch the sunrise. Camus' third solution was to embrace the absurdity that arises from being an entity hungering for meaning in a meaningless universe, and to continue the hunt for it regardless. By embracing things as we are, by embracing things as they are, we free ourselves from the despair over how they are not. In acknowledging the absurdity of seeking meaning in a meaningless universe, one can be happy, gradually developing the meaning from the search alone. In other words,
Buffy, please. Just this once. Let me be strong.
Strong is fighting. It's hard, and it's painful, and it's every day. It's what we have to do, and we can do it together.
strong is fighting. Strong is not the rock stays at the top. Strong is making the choice to go and get it again. And in Gingerbread, the last part of the episode trilogy, Angel and Buffy have a conversation that indicates he has begun to understand.
Buffy, you know I'm still figuring things out. There's a lot I don't understand. But I do know it's important to keep fighting. And I learned that from you.
But we never
Never win.
not completely.
Never will. That's not why we fight. We do it because there's things worth fighting for.
But there are some lessons we're never done learning. And while Buffy was the teacher here later in the series,
Life's not a song. Life isn't bliss. Life is just this. It's living.
now while Buffy is considered a feminist show in the way it bucked horror and superhero gender tropes, I can't think of many episode plots that are as specific to classical feminism as Helpless. In it, Buffy is celebrating her 18th birthday, the age in the States most commonly associated with independence and emancipation. And at this significant point in her life, Travers, the head of the Watchers Council, is in town working with Giles to get Buffy into the Cruciamentum. They call it a test, in which the Slayer is drugged, deprived of her powers, and then thrown into a trap with a particularly hungry lion. In this case, the vampire Kralik. If she can survive without her powers and win the day, she passes the test and gets to remain the Slayer. It's a pretty disgusting insight into the vile, unspoken nature of how the Slayer line works, and I was caught off guard by Giles's verbal faux pas when he was trying to explain the test to Buffy. Notice the rephrase.
It's a test, Buffy. It's given to the Slayer once if she reaches her 18th birthday.
Many Slayers die before they reach 18, and when they do, a young, controllable potential is called. And if the current Slayer does reach 18, the age of emancipation, take away her powers without telling her and throw her in the cage with a lion. If she survives, she knows she can never escape the Council's will. She knows she's always vulnerable. If she doesn't survive, a new controllable Slayer is called. The Cruciamentum is not a test. It is a system of control. Cruciamentum is the combination of two Latin words, crucio, meaning torture, and mentum, which means mind. So the Cruciamentum, then, is the breaking of the mind. And throughout, Travers, the head of the predominantly male Watchers Council, regularly justifies the practice on the grounds of tradition and history, a conservative and regressive argument. It's easy to couch the subjugation of individuals in the dry and lifeless terminology of institutions, tradition, right. Advanced cultures try and promote equality through law, but discrimination that occurs beneath the veil of tradition often takes the longest to die out. However, the length of time something has been done the wrong way is never a good argument for continuing to do it, and the agency of any single individual should never be denied on the basis of preserving an institution. And ultimately, Buffy, robbed of all her physical power, exposes the sexist conceit of the test when she kills Kralik. Might, by itself, is not power. Now, I Will Remember You is about endings, happy endings to be specific. The episode opens with a shot of a clock that Angel is winding, and that clock makes a prominent appearance 3 times throughout the episode. Sorry, weird noise. Someone's drilling something upstairs. Clock makes a prominent appearance 3 times. Now, Buffy is visiting LA, and she and Angel are attacked by a Moira demon. The Moira in Greek mythology were the fates that controlled the directions of people's lives, and some of the demon's blood seeps into Angel's wound, and he's rendered human. And after some hemming and hawing over whether to trust this change, Angel and Buffy get their happy ending. A human male, a normal girl, and cookie dough fudge mint chip ice cream. But the Moira is still alive, and after it kicks Angel's now human behind, the Oracle confirm its omen, along with the fact that Slayer will die sooner as a result of it. In one of the more heartbreaking scenes in Angel, he explains to a tearful Buffy that he made a deal to reverse the day in order to stay a vampire. They weep as the camera tracks the minute hand on a clock. And when the day is restored, Angel uses the clock he was winding at the beginning of the episode to kill the Moira, and his happy ending. Time goes on, and I think the point here is time. There are no happy endings because time doesn't allow for endings, save for one. The battle goes on. Angel doesn't get to curl up in Buffy's arms and watch the sunset because there is always another sunrise. And what this episode represents to me is Angel accepting that path. Buffy and Angel's burden is the inevitability of time in the form of the next battle. That is the weight of the rock. Strong is fighting. Hard, painful, and every day. Now, on his own show, much of Angel's motivation centers around the Shanshu, the belief that he will someday play a part in the apocalypse and, as a reward, be restored to human. So it would seem that his journey for redemption has a clear point of completion, a destination he needed to get to, and in Season 2, he becomes impatient to get to that destination, resorting to gruesome means. And in Reprise, when he discovers that Wolfram and Hart's 75-year review is coming and learns of the Home Office in hell, he's even willing to descend down there to put an end to the struggle. In the elevator down, he meets the very dead Holland Manners, and Holland reveals to Angel a truth.
So, what's the big plan, Angel? Destroy the senior partners. Smash Wolfram and Hart once and for all. Now tell me, just what do you imagine that would accomplish? In the end, I mean.
It'll be the end. You're not gonna win.
No, of course we aren't. We have no intention of doing anything so prosaic as winning.
Then why?
I'm sorry? Why?
Why fight?
That's really the question you should be asking yourself, isn't it?
The reveal that the Home Office is Earth is an anticlimax, and it is supposed to be. Angel can't destroy evil, because evil is in every one of us, including him. He can't banish it away any more than he can destroy the whole world. So he decides to destroy his own world instead by sleeping with Darla. Now, this all has strong ties to Amends. In Amends, Angel couldn't fathom redemption for the things he'd done, so he gave up on living. And in Season 2, of Angel the series, he wants redemption so badly that he gives up his reasons for living, the rest of Team Angel. You see, the vague and ambiguous Shanshu is a philosophical lie. It represents a constant, nagging, and ever-present question. How long do I have to fight before I can be normal again? Before I can be forgiven? In the courtyard with Kate, near the end of Epiphany, we get one of the most profound moments in the Buffyverse.
Doesn't
what?
mean anything. The greater scheme and the big picture. Nothing we do matters. There's no grand plan, no big win. If there's no great glorious end to all this, if nothing we do matters, then all that matters is what we do. Because that's all there is. What we do now, today. I fought for so long for redemption, for a reward. Finally, just to beat the other guy, but I never got it. All I want to do is help. I want to help because I don't think people should suffer as they do. Because if there's no bigger meaning than the smallest act of kindness, it's the greatest thing in the world.
See, that's the thing. Redemption isn't a place to get to. It's not a finish line you cross and all's forgiven. Redemption is a state of being, a series of continuous actions. What you do today, right now. Our mistakes, our sins, we own them. And the choice to be better informs the decisions we make for the rest of our lives. Now, The Gift is my favorite season finale in both series, and a major dividing line in Buffy as a show. Whedon's original premise for the show was, how does a child pass through adolescence and become an adult? And all of the monster business was just a metaphor for impediments to that process. And The Gift is the end of that process. And what makes The Gift more stunning is how it works. Its plot works with a pretty complex metaphor. The season is loaded with split personalities. Xander's two halves. I'll go ahead and blow your mind right now and let you know that Ben is Glory. And while Dawn herself works on more than a few levels, the one of primary significance, Buffy states outright in this episode. She's me. The monks made her out of me. She has Summer's blood. Glory is a vision of the Slayer power unchecked. Earlier in the season, when a monster tried to split Buffy into Slayer half and human half, Riley inadvertently described Glory pretty accurately, saying that a Slayer lacking a human side would be like Slayer concentrate, pretty unkillable. That's Glory. And when the spirit guide very cryptically tells Buffy that death is her gift, or that death is the ultimate Slayer power, she fears a cynical and hopeless future, both as Slayer and as an adult.
I sacrificed Angel to save the world. I loved him so much. But I knew I was right. I don't have that anymore. I don't understand. I don't know how to live in this world if these are the choices. If everything just gets stripped away. I don't see the point.
It isn't until the tower that she manages to put everything together. The Glory and Dawn are two halves of herself, her inner child and her cold potential future. Now, there is a structural precedent here. If The Gift is the end of Buffy's journey to adulthood, then its bookend is Prophecy Girl, the episode in which she committed to that journey. And in Prophecy Girl, the Master represented Buffy's fears of adulthood, as does Glory. But where the Anointed One was a warning to her about childhood unended, Dawn is childlike hope and wonder. Glory's quest to destroy Dawn, then, represents the fear of losing those redeeming qualities of childhood. As we watch the sun hit her face, Buffy becomes aware that there is a choice. Dawn doesn't have to die. The gift is not the ability to kill, but to sacrifice. And we can feel her relief, her understanding. And in the leap from the tower, she saves hope from cynicism. Now, Season 6 is my favorite. Season 6 of Buffy is my favorite of the series. But there's no denying it's also one of its most conceptually problematic. Still, With Buffy having completed her journey to adulthood, Season 6 then begins adulthood and all the challenges therein. Mind-numbing employment, loneliness, existential crisis, knowing when to let go as a parent, and how to love an addict in your life. Willow's growing addiction in Season 6 and her willingness to manipulate and lie to her friends about it leaves Tara having to make a choice between her integrity or Willow. She makes the hard decision, and her choice allows Willow to come to grips with the consequences of her addiction. But just as she manages to right her sinking ship, and Tara comes back into her life, the unthinkable happens. Grief is a journey to be taken, and there is nothing like it. A consuming fire inside that we can do nothing with but let burn. We are powerless, and it rules us. But to take the journey is a choice. Instead, Willow shuts the door on her firestorm of grief and turns to her anger instead. Because anger allows us to feel powerful and in control again, and vice allows us to feel nothing. Willow dives back into the magic like an addict trying to kill themselves with their drug, and to some degree, it works, and she disappears beneath the surface of it. And let's not forget Sartre. If you believe that one choice you have takes undeniable precedent over another, then you have made yourself an object in the world at the mercy of its circumstances. Willow has abandoned her agency for vengeance because the only other choice would be grief, and so life becomes meaningless.
Sometimes you don't have a choice.
Well, you do have a choice. This isn't good for you.
Nothing can hurt you now. This is nothing. It's all nothing.
See, if you lose someone you love, and the other people in your life who care about you become meaningless.
And at the end of the line, with Willow on the verge of cracking the world in two, Xander steps in front of her.
Hey, black-eyed girl. What you doing?
I think the reason Xander's words finally penetrate Willow's armor is because of the naked truth of them.
You can't stop this.
Yeah, I get that.
He most certainly can't stop her, and that's what imbues his words with absolute veracity. He's Xander. He doesn't have the power of the Slayer or the borrowed power of a circle of wizards. Certainly he's shown himself to be self-interested at times, especially this season, so it's not a guarantee of altruism the way Buffy might have done. Now, Xander's willingness to be the first victim of Willow's cataclysm, as long as he gets to spend his last moments with her, represents an act of unconditional love. She's gone mad with power, consumed with anger, but she's still the person he'd want to sit next to watch the world fall.
I love crayon breaky Willow, and I love scary veiny Willow.
To find herself bouncing along the bottom, at her very worst, still loved, after she'd thought all love had been blown from the universe.
Shut up.
I think it's that which allows her to turn back towards the door she'd closed.
I love you.
To face the fire.
I love you, Willow.
To let it burn. There is nothing like grief. And you come to realize the only way out was through it.
I love you.
And through it we learned that that thing burning inside of us, that thing we'd turned away from, was the one we'd lost. Now, always, in our hearts.
I am, you know. What? Yours?
But the Buffyverse is not so simple as to suggest that everyone good eventually finds their way. Though I think sometimes we can find as much inspiration from tragedy as we can from stories of redemption. And Wesley Wyndham-Pryce is the singular tragic hero of the Buffyverse. Because Wesley's journey is a tragedy and lacks a specific moment of redemption, what's relevant is not a specific episode, but the cumulative results of his actions. His fatal flaw, which eventually leads to his downfall, is a sort of do-gooder myopia, a regular inability to see other options than the ones that he believes is right, along with a deep-seated desire to be the hero of the story, to be the head boy.
You do what you have to do to protect the people around you. You do what you know is right, regardless of the cost. You know, I never really understood that.
Regardless of the cost. His rigid, lawful good nature manifested early on in Buffy, after Faith had accidentally killed a man and begun her own sort of bad faith spiral. Now, fearing how he would react, Giles and Buffy kept Faith's attempted rehabilitation from Wesley. And when he did find out, rather than working with them or communicating, Wesley called the council and made things that much worse. In Angel Season 3, Wesley reads a prophecy that says Angel is going to kill his baby son, Connor. And the burden of that knowledge weighs heavily on him throughout the season, but he keeps it to himself, and again sees only one choice of action: stealing Connor from Angel and attempting to disappear, making things that much worse again. And when the invasion of Wolfram and Hart, led by his father, put Fred in jeopardy, once again, Wesley acts on pure impulse. He seems on the cusp of pulling himself out of his moral spiral when he and Fred get together. But then, the final piece is taken away. And in a conversation with Illyria, we see Wesley has some understanding of what he's become.
I must learn to walk in this world. I'll need your help, Wesley.
If I were to help you find your way, you have to learn to change. You mustn't kill.
You killed the Quahazan in defiance of your leader.
You murdered the woman I love.
And that made it just.
No, wasn't just. I'm probably the last man in the world to teach you what's right.
Wesley taking on Illyria does demonstrate in him some desire to adjust the course of his own destiny. But perhaps something indescribable has already been lost. In Angel's first season, when Cordy and Wes were trying to bring Angel back from the brink, Wes may have prophesied his own death.
Angel's cut off. Death doesn't bother him because there's nothing in life he wants. It's our desires that make us human.
But perhaps it's too late. After Angel tells the group to take the night off and do whatever they want, Illyria points out to Wesley,
I am not what you want.
There is no perfect day for me, Illyria. There is nothing that I want.
Wesley is the tragic hero, who, unlike other characters on the show, never realizes his strongest self, because he never sees the choices that are in front of him. Angel's journey throughout the show is about redemption. He began an amends by first wondering if he could be redeemed, and in Reprise and Epiphany, he came to grips with that redemption isn't a finish line, but a state of being in the moment. The ends don't justify the means, because the means are all that really matter. Season 5 asks the question, is it acceptable to do a little wrong in order to do right? Team Angel takes over management of Wolfram and Hart in LA, using its considerable resources to fight evil, while still having to keep up with its devilish bag of clientele, and to keep the business afloat. And a lot of the team face similar moral trade-offs during the season. Lorne has his sleep removed in order to manage the hectic schedule of an entertainment mogul. Gunn makes a promise to a mad scientist in order to keep his lawyer smarts. All these trades were done with seemingly small intended moral consequences, but the season suggests that opening the door to minor ethical compromises leaves a gap for massive ones to slip by. Now, the series was up for renewal during Season 5, and negotiations fell through. With not very long to go, Whedon and Company had to make a hard turn in the arc in order to give the series the ending it deserved. Not Fade Away was epic, dramatic, and heartrending. Each character's final night alone is perfect and meaningful, and the direction and editing for the final suicide mission for me evokes the simultaneous frenetic energy in the finales to the Star Wars trilogies, the originals. But the final scene in the alleyway is divisive for fans. The surviving team members of Angel stare down an incoming horde, a mob more akin to something from Lord of the Rings than from LA or Sunnydale. Angel calls the team to action, swings his sword, cut to black. Of course, I can understand the frustration, but I find the ending perfect. In a series about finding strength and the never-ending good fight, and the sacrifices of our desires to do what's right, anything else would have been disingenuous. The battle goes on. The Rock never stays at the top. The final season of Buffy was crafted with a similar structure to the rest. What personal challenges would Buffy be facing at this time in her life? And season 7 suggests there comes a time when we pass our power on to the next generation. And the potentials are symbols for that next generation. As they prepare to go into the final battle, Buffy stands in front of them and speaks as a parent would, decrying that there is evil in the world and that she must let them face it. And then she offers them something she was offered 7 seasons before. A choice.
Here's the part where you make a choice. What if you could have that power? Now. In every generation, one Slayer is born. Because a bunch of men who died thousands of years ago made up that rule. They were powerful men. This woman is more powerful than all of them combined. So I say we change the rule. I say my power should be our power. Tomorrow, Willow will use the essence of this scythe to change our destiny. From now on, every girl in the world who might be a Slayer will be a Slayer. Every girl who could have the power will have the power. Can stand up, will stand up. Slayers. Every one of us. Make your choice. Are you ready to be strong?
And the women save the world. I'm 38 this year, and as I've gotten older, I found myself more and more asking the same question. What would Buffy do? What metaphorical monsters would be facing Buffy in midlife? The 401k Phantom? The insurance gap assassin? I don't know. But as much as I'd love to learn from a middle-aged Buffy, I still find great inspiration in returning to the Buffyverse we got to have. She is still saving people. Through the channel, I've received many intensely personal messages from people around the world who tell me that Buffy saved them, pulled them back from the brink. And I tell them, she once saved me too. There was a period in my own life when for a long time I felt like I was drowning, struggling to find a reason even to get out of bed in the morning. I've never experienced such profound apathy. And what made it all the more daunting was not only could I not find a reason to get up, but I couldn't figure out if I did how a machine so broken could fix itself. I had little control over the direction of my thoughts, and when I did, it was because I was drinking. It was around that time I first discovered the show, and for a few months, the show became my reason to get up in the morning. I had to know what happened to these characters I was falling in love with. I never begrudged myself that. Hope is the light on the horizon. And if Buffy was the only star in my sky for a few months, well, then I was grateful. And when it was over, I started the series from scratch that same day. Something I didn't expect was happening. Witnessing the struggles of these rich, beautiful characters was helping me find and patch some of the leaks in my own life, to the point where the ship had stopped sinking farther down. And when I finally made the choice to get myself into therapy, the first thing I asked the therapist was, "Do you believe a broken machine can fix itself?" And he said, "Yes, if you hold a mirror in front of it so it can see what's wrong." Always remember, there are things worth fighting for, and you are one of them. Thank you for sharing this hour with me.